the fourth day of this retreat, and I think we are passing the hard time, the difficult period of this retreat. Actually, first 3 days are the most difficult and hard period of any retreat. First 3 days, a lot of struggles, a lot of fights, and a lot of resistance towards meditation and towards the retreat, and a lot of doubts. And because of all those things, few times we may think, oh, better to leave the retreat. Enough. This is not the right time. We can do this meditation in another time. So after dealing and working and managing all these ideas, thoughts, decisions, doubts, and even physical difficulties, now we are settling down in the practice. Maybe still some ups and downs, but not like peaks and bottoms, more like a wave now. Now we are entering into the rhythm of the practice. Rhythm of the practice. Becoming stable. Physically, we are becoming stable, and mentally, also spiritually. Not like flat line, but still ups and downs. We have heard some beautiful words like peacefulness, calmness, tranquility, the joy of present moment, quietness, inner silence, and many more. But in the beginning, they were just sounds, maybe beautiful sounds. And later, those beautiful sounds became beautiful words. At least literally or intellectually, we started to understand the meaning of these words. So first, beautiful sounds, then beautiful words. And my dear friends, we did not stop our practice. We are still continuing our practice. Therefore, now they are not just sounds. They are not only words either. Now they are our experiences. We experience them now. Less or more, or time to time, we experience the peacefulness. The peacefulness is not just a sound or word which is in a book anymore. Now it is here. It's in our life, part of our life. Even though we do not experience it always, but time to time, at least for a while, we are able to experience it. Only meditation can do this miracle, my dear friends. Only meditation. Book knowledge becomes practical experiences. Who can do this transformation? Depth, knowledge, depth, sentences become live experiences. Who can do this miracle? We can do this miracle. We do this miracle with help of the meditation. So with all these experiential support, now we want to go deeper and further into the practice. I think now nobody wants to stop this practice or give up the practice or postpone the practice. And also now the practice is becoming more and more simple, not more and more complicated. This is another beauty of meditation. All the other things, if you learn more and more, then all the other subjects are becoming more and more complicated. Whatever, science, physics, mathematics, accounts, medicine, whatever. In the beginning, very simple. In the kindergarten level, grade 1, very simple. But grade 2, more complicated than the grade 1. And then it goes like that, becoming more and more complicated. But my dear friends, meditation goes other way around. In the beginning, it looks like impossible. Impossible. Physically impossible. Psychologically impossible. Impossible to sit even for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And impossible to work with the mind. But after a while, all these impossible things become possible. Still difficult, but it is now possible. We can do. We can do now. And we are doing. And if you go further, then everything becomes more and more simple. Especially the meditation, it becomes more and more simple. Life also. Usually, life begins in a very simple way. life is so simple for kids. Living is actually nothing for children. But when we grow up, then life becomes complicated. And when we grow more up, more complicated. And sometimes we come to certain point, oh, it's impossible to live. So everything goes in that direction. Start from simplicity and going through a lot of complications, lot of difficulties, and end up with impossible. Impossible, not only difficult, impossible. Even ordinary relationships. Very simple to start. If you can remember how you did start any relationship, any kind of relationship, even you were not aware how it happened, how it started. But later, things become complicated. And you have to invest a lot of effort to maintain the relationship. Very complicated. And one day you come to this point, it is impossible to continue. Then you make a full stop. Impossible. So this is the way how things goes, or how things move. Start from very, very simple place, simple point, and becoming more and more complicated, and end up with impossible. But meditation, other way around. In the beginning, very difficult life looks impossible. Not only difficult, impossible. That's why many people come to this practice with great expectations. And after a couple of minutes, most of them leave, stop. Because it started from this. It starts from this point, impossible. But if we make effort, continue effort with right guidance, correct guidance, and with group support, with environmental support, then it becomes possible. Impossible meditation becomes possible, and it becomes more simple. And finally, it is nothing. You end up with this feeling, oh, it's nothing. So what are two directions? World direction is starting point is simple and then end up with impossible. So meditation starts from where the world ends, impossible, and then difficult, possible, simple, and nothing. As the breath in the beginning, to be aware on breathing is impossible, looks like impossible, because the breath is moving so fast and difficult to recognize in-breath and out-breath separately. And when we say the body is inhaling, then the inhale is over and the exhale is over, because we are far behind. Our mindfulness is far behind the breath. If our mindfulness is far behind the breath, then it is difficult, or it looks like it is impossible. Therefore, we think we better to find a way to calm down the breathing first. Or whenever the breath calms down, only then we can start to practice meditation. So we postpone it to the future, unknown future. We think one day the breath will be calm down. In that day we can meditate. But it doesn't happen by itself. It doesn't happen. We had to make an effort. We had to maintain this effort, even though it looks like impossible. We should not give up the practice. Then, then time to time we can feel, this is in-breath. And after a while, that is out-breath. So we may not be able to watch the in-breath and the out-breath together in the beginning. It is not happening like that. Maybe only in-breath, and after a while, out-breath is over, next in-breath is over as well, but then that is out-breath. So in between that, there are a lot of gaps. But at least one single breath we can notice per minute, not per second. So that's good. If we meditate for 45 minutes, then 45 breaths we could notice. If we can watch one single breath per minute, then for 30 minutes, half an hour meditation session, we can observe 30 breaths. So it's a very good progress. Don't worry about the gap in between two notices. Please do not worry about the gap. Gap means we are unaware. Awareness is absent. That's why we cannot feel, we cannot experience in-breath and out-breath together. Out-breath after the in-breath, and in-breath after the out-breath. We cannot watch continuously, because our awareness is absent. Mindfulness is absent. That is also normal. Mindfulness is a mental factor. There are a lot of mental factors. Mindfulness is one of the mental factors. And the nature of all kinds of mental factors is they come, stay, and then they go away. They arise and stay, then they pass away. In the same mind. my dear friends, we better to understand the nature of mindfulness as well, because we want to continue this practice. We want to improve our mindfulness. To improve our mindfulness, of course, we need a lot of practice as well as understanding about the mindfulness, what the mindfulness is, what is the nature of mindfulness, how to improve it. So the mindfulness is a mental factor. There are a lot of mental factors, many, according to the Buddhism. According to some text, there are 52 mental factors, 52. So mindfulness is only one. There are some wholesome mental factors and unwholesome mental factors. Wholesome or unwholesome, the nature of very obvious nature of all the mental factors is they arise and do something, and then they pass away in the same mind. That is called mental movement. Mental movement. So the mind and that mental factor bond together, arise together, and do something. And they are doing something together. The mind and whatever mental factor bond together. If they bond together, then they do something. So when the mindfulness arises with the mind, then we know what that mind can do, or what that mind want to do, or what the mind is doing, observing, knowing, watching, looking, seeing, and knowing. And after doing, then it is passing away. The mind and the mindfulness, both of them are passing away, arising together and working together, and then passing away together. That is called mental movement. So it is too short, so short. Our normal watch or clocks cannot measure the period of this mental movement. It is too short. And then the next mental movement, again, mind arises with some other mental factors. If the mind arises with the mindfulness, then again we can notice, we can be aware, we know what is happening for that moment. And again, that the mind and mindfulness are passing away. So if it happens for 10 times, then we see our mindfulness is stable. But even that, it's a very short period of time. Maybe 1 second, maybe 2 seconds, maybe 10 seconds. If mindfulness arises for 10 times, one after the other, one after the other, one after the other, then we see our mindfulness is stable now for maybe 8 seconds or 12 seconds. But that doesn't mean the same mindfulness is existing throughout this entire period of time. No. There are a couple of mental movements. So each time, new mindfulness. New mindfulness. We cannot change this nature. There is no way to change this nature. How long we meditate? Maybe 100 years if we meditate, but same phenomena. Mindfulness arises and works, then it passes away. At the same time, the length of the lifetime of one single mind movement is always same. Though we meditate or not, we cannot change this lifetime of mental movement, mind movement. It's always same. So now we know how we do feel this. Our mindfulness is stable, means again and again, again and again, again and again. Only the mindfulness is arising and passing away, arising and passing away, arising and passing away. And after a while, maybe if the mindfulness does not arise for a while, then we are unaware. Then we are unmindful, unaware. But mind is still there with some other mental factors. But we don't know because no mindfulness. We don't know. And after a while again, mindfulness comes. And then we know. The first thing what we know is we were not aware. There was a gap. There is a blank spot. We didn't know what happened. This is the first awareness, first realization. Whenever the mindfulness returns after a while, the very first insight is we were not aware, we were not mindful. That means the mind was wandering. It was wandering. When the mindfulness is not with the mind, then what happens to the mind is the mind becomes out of control. The mind becomes out of control. Even the mind is unable to control itself. And then it looks like a car is running without a driver. No driver now, but it is running now. It is going. No control. No control. It goes everywhere. On the road, off the road, outside of the road, in wrong directions. Who can predict? Who can predict about a car which is running without a driver? I mean, not that robot car. I think now you have robot car in Europe. So those cars don't need the driver. The robot can drive. But I'm speaking not this car, normal car, a normal vehicle. It is now going, but no driver. Then can you give predictions about that vehicle? It goes that way, that is the stop, or it goes to that direction. No, nobody can predict. So same thing happens to our mind, my dear friends, when the mindfulness is not there. No rider. So the car, the vehicle of mind is going everywhere towards this direction for a couple of meters and suddenly change to another direction and thinking about something else for a while, and without going to the end of come to any conclusion of that thinking, again make a U-turn. No meaning, looks like a crazy. If a car goes like that, we say, this car is crazy. The mind becomes crazy. Really, the mind is crazy when the mindfulness is not there. And then, whenever the mindfulness again arises with the mind, then suddenly, there is no time gap then. Suddenly, like you are sit on the driving seat. The steering wheels are on your hands now. Your feet are on the pedals. One foot is on the brake pedal. So now the vehicle is under control. Then you can do whatever. If you want to go same direction, you can go. You can drive. Or if you want to stop, you can stop. If you want to slow down, you can slow down. If you want to make a U-turn, you can make a U-turn. Everything is possible then. Whenever you are sitting on the driving seat, same thing happens whenever the mindfulness returns. Whenever the mindfulness comes back, then the mind becomes under control by itself. Not with any pressure, not with any force. So then the first insight is, I was not mindful. This is the first insight. I wasn't unaware for a while. Therefore, I didn't know what I have done. I didn't know why I have done those things. I didn't know where I have gone. Even I didn't know why I have to sit here. Not only why I have to sit here, we don't know we are sitting here or we were sitting here. Looks like we were blind and deaf. Whenever we are not mindful. So this is the first insight. And then if we start to worry about it, then that worries are pushing away the mindfulness. Worries are pushing away the mindfulness. So that's why we say, please do not worry. Do not worry. Whenever you realize that you are not meditating, don't worry about it. Instead of being worried, be happy. Be happy. Why we had to be happy? Because we know that we were not meditating. And now we are meditating. By knowing that we were not meditating, we can meditate. So we have now time to meditate, and we should not waste this time for worrying. We can appreciate the mindfulness. Thanks, dear mindfulness, you taught. Because of you, I know I wasn't meditating. Because of your notice, because of your announcement, because of your presence, now I know I wasn't meditating last couple of seconds or minutes. Thank you, dear mindfulness, for acknowledge us. So learn to appreciate your mindfulness whenever it returns. Whenever you become mindful, please appreciate. This is very important. So if 30 times mindfulness disappears, you have 30 times chances to be mindful or re-mindful and appreciate. Usually we do everything mechanically as a machine. So machines are not appreciating anything. No. If a car stops because of no fuel, and when you again supply fuel, the car doesn't say thank you or thanks for filling me. No. But by appreciating, we can become live. We can transform our mechanical way of life into a live form just by appreciating. So please appreciate. You are welcome. Welcome back, dear mindfulness. Let's work together now. Let us work together. Let us watch the breath again. Now I know the body is inhaling. Now I know the body is exhaling. So by doing this, what we are doing, we are using the mindfulness. The mindfulness is requesting us to use it. Actually, this is a very common nature of all the other mental factors as well. If we use them, then they come again and again. If we use the hatred is another mental factor. And whenever it comes, and if we use it, then it is staying with us for a longer period of time. It comes again and again and again. But if you do not use the hatred, even though it comes, if you do not use that hatred for your verbal or physical behaviors, then it may not come back often as before. So this is one of the techniques to work with negative emotions. Don't use them. Let them come. Let them come. Let them arise. But better to not to use them. Let them realize this. that they are useless. We don't say this. We don't say you are useless. Let them understand this, that they are useless. Useless to come to this man. Useless to come to this woman. Because they are not using me. I become a useless person in front of this gentleman or lady. So no emotion likes to become a useless guy. You can try. Do this experiment by yourself. Let them come and don't use them. Don't care about them. Even if you do this, if you treat in this way to any of your friends, any of your visitors, they may not come back. They may come for the next time, second time, and same treatment. Third time, same treatment, and they may not come again. You don't have to say don't come. No need to say don't come. So appreciating, after appreciating, please work together with the mindfulness. Work together. Work as much as possible. Because the mindfulness never become tired. The mindfulness never becomes tired. So we can work with the mindfulness together to observe our in-breath and out-breath. And when we hear a sound, we can observe how we hear a sound. And we come back to the breath. We may have a sensation, pain, we observe it and come back to the breath. We may remember something, we notice and return to the breath. Then the practice becomes possible. When we come to this stage, then impossible practice becomes possible. Because before, we try to meditate without the mindfulness. That's why it was impossible. We cannot meditate without the mindfulness. So with the mindfulness, impossible things become possible. And then the meditation is going smoothly. And again, after a while, the mindfulness disappears. That's the nature. Now, it's stable for a while, longer than before, but anyhow, it disappears. But even though it disappears, it comes back without keeping a long gaps. Now, no long gaps in between disappearing and appearing. Some gaps are there, still gaps are there, but no long gaps. gaps are becoming shorter and shorter and shorter. The body is starting to breathe in. The body starts to breathe in. And if the mindfulness is there, then the mindfulness tells us the body is inhaling now. The body is inhaling. Therefore, we know the body is inhaling because the mindfulness is reporting us this. And we know it takes some time, maybe 2 seconds, 3 seconds, the lifetime of in-breath. But the lifetime of mental movement is much, much, much shorter than the lifetime of one single breath, one single in-breath. One single in-breath is longer than, many, many times longer than one mental movement. Therefore, after noticing the beginning of in-breath, then maybe mindfulness can disappear. The mindfulness was there when the body starts to breathe in. That's why we know. But then it may disappear. And it may return in the same breath. That is possible. Because the lifetime of breath is maybe 3 seconds, 2 seconds. Therefore, the mindfulness can disappear and appear in the same breath before the breath in-breath finish. Then we cannot see the gap. Then it looks like no gap. Then we say our mindfulness is so stable. We are meditating continually now. So it needs, my dear friends, a lot of practice. Continuation is important for this mindful practice. Continuation, not like half an hour per day. We do things mindfully and rest of the day, we don't use the mindfulness. And again, next day, half an hour mindfulness practice and rest of the day, unmindfulness practice. It's okay to relax ourselves. At least we can relax by practicing half an hour mindfulness exercises. We can relax. It's okay, it's good, but not enough. Not enough. So that's why we do this type of retreats. From morning to the evening. The moment that we wake up till we sleep, we need continuation, at least to establish our mindfulness. We don't need a retreat for lifetime. No, but at least to make friends with, be familiar with the mindfulness. So when we do this breathing meditation, in the beginning it is complicated. The breath is also complicated thing. It is mixing. The in-breath is mixing with the out-breath. It's not clear. The breathing is not happening properly, usually. There is a reason for that. We say the breath is purely physical. The breath is, we think that the breathing is something physical. The body, only the body is breathing. That is not true. There is nothing purely physical in human lives. Nothing is 100% physical in our life. Nothing. Whatever we do and whatever we experience, there is a physical part as well as psychological part. If the physical part is more than 50%, then we say it is physical. If the psychological part is more than 50%, then we say that is psychological. But there is no 100% physical as well as 100% psychological. Body and mind. Body and mind. Or even better to say body-mind. Not better. Body-mind. Not body and mind. Everything is body-mind. Or mind-body. It's a one word. Actually one word. Body-mind. Or mind-body. Therefore, the mind is there behind every single breath. Not only the lungs, not only the abdomen, not only the diaphragm. The mind is behind always our breathing. If the mind is agitated, then that agitated mind is influencing the breath. It is influencing everything. The mind is influencing everything, whatever we do. Whatever we do consciously as well as whatever we do unconsciously. That's why sometimes we are having digesting problems. If the mind is imbalanced, then that imbalanced mind is affecting to our every internal activities as well. Internal physical activities like digesting food. So difficult to digest food now. And we think it is physical problem. Maybe sometimes it can happen because of physical reasons, but sometimes it can happen because of psychological reasons. Likewise, my dear friends, if the mind is behind every single breath, and if that mind is agitated, then the breath becomes also complicated. There is no choice. The breath has not any choice by itself. It cannot decide by itself. I should be calm. The breath does not have this freedom. It is not independent. The breathing is not something independent. It is depending on three conditions. The first one is the body, physical conditions. What we are doing, if you are climbing a mountain, then of course we know it affects to the breathing. If you are carrying some heavy things, also it affects to the breathing. And if you are lying down, then we know the breath is so shallow. If you are standing, if you are running, walking, it is different. If you are sitting, again different. If you are sleeping, different. So this is the first condition. The breath is depending on the physical conditions, the present physical conditions. There are many sub-physical conditions. The food what we have eaten, and when we have eaten, and what we are doing now physically, in which posture, so many. The second condition is mind. The breath is depending on the present psychological condition or conditions. We know this. We know this. There was a beautiful story. Once a meditation teacher and his disciples walk together, and they come to a village, unknown village. And then the teacher saw that there was children, a gathering. And the teacher was interested to know what they are doing. And when they come closer to this group of children, then they realize that one boy is teaching to the other children. They are in same age, less or more. Maybe that boy who is teaching is a bit adult, elderly than other children who were sitting there. And then this meditation teacher, master, asked from this boy who was teaching there, what are you teaching to these children? You are in same age. What are you teaching? Then this boy said, I am teaching the alphabet. Then the master, this meditation master, was happy. And he said, yes, this is the beginning of learning. First, we have to learn the alphabet. If you ask me to teach to these kids, I also start with the alphabet. Without knowing the alphabet, they cannot learn anything else, any other subject. And we cannot teach any other subject without teaching the alphabet. Then this boy said, yes, but I am not teaching the alphabet. What do you mean? I am teaching the alphabet of life. I am teaching to these boys, these kids or children, about the alphabet of life. Then this meditation teacher, he was so curious and asked, what is the alphabet of life? The breathing. The boy said, the breathing. Breathing. The breathing is the alphabet of life. That's very true. That meditation teacher later said, first time he became aware on this. He was practicing mindfulness of breathing meditation for a long period of time, years and years, but he didn't aware on this simple fact. The breath is the alphabet of life. If we can learn the alphabet, then we can learn about the entire life. Anyhow, so the breath is depending on the mind, the mental conditions, mental situations. And the third factor is the breath is depending on the environmental conditions. If less oxygen in the nature, then it affects. If it is polluted, if it is hot, cold, it affects. So the breath is not something independent. It is depending. By meditating on this breath, we also learn this very important phenomena. We are depending. We are dependent. We are depending on so many things, internal and external, physical, mental, and environmental conditions. That is one of the very significant teachings of Buddhism, dependent origination. Dependent origination. So we can even go that much depth. We can go to that much depth of spirituality just by practicing mindfulness of breathing. Don't worry about gaps. Don't worry about absence of the mindfulness. Whenever it returns, say thank you, appreciate, and say, let us work together now. Let us work together as long as possible. Thank you very much, my dear friends.